Hello and welcome to the Student Mission Podcast. My name is Mads.
And mine's Josh.
And we're part of the team here at Fusion. And at Fusion, we have a vision for every student to find hope in Jesus and a home in the local church.
So tune in each episode as we chat to students from across this nation and hear stories, captivating stories of what God is doing in awakening this generation.
That's right. And we hope that by listening to this podcast, you feel inspired to reach those around you with the love of Jesus.
Welcome back to part 2 of Loughborough. That's right. We're still in Loughborough.
Here again.
God is doing that much that it requires 2 episodes just to talk about what God's doing in Loughborough.
Yeah.
We've got another 3 students.
We have, and they've got fantastic, amazing testimonies that we're going to hear. But Josh has got one more fun fact
It is
for
fun.
you.
It's a bonus fun fact. That's right. You made it to part 2, so you get a part 2 fun fact.
That's right. Tell us, Josh.
So for all you tourists out there, when traveling through Loughborough, let me tell you about the latest honeypot site.
Go on.
Throwback to GCSE geography.
Yeah.
There is a statue called the Sockman statue, found
Nice.
only in Loughborough. It is a whimsical, quirky statue of a man sat on a rock putting on his socks.
You're joking.
I'm not.
No way.
I'm not. You can Google this. This is
A must-see site, isn't it?
a must-see. I don't know if it's number 1 on TripAdvisor, but it should be.
Well done, Loughborough. You're doing a great job.
I'm proud to be here.
Yeah, we're so glad that we're here. But we're going to get into our conversations now with these 3 students, but starting off with Kim. Kim, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good, thank you. And you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. We're happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about what you're up to at the moment.
I'm just at Loughborough University doing a PhD on the gut microbiome and getting involved in church a lot.
Come on.
Can I just pause it? What is a gut microbiome? Is that are those the words you just said?
Yeah.
It's basically your second brain. So people always think that like serotonin and dopamine gets produced in the brain, but it actually gets produced in the gut, 99% of it.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
So if you take like probiotics and stuff, it really affects your mood and it's just so cool. I just love it. Yeah.
That's actually changed everything.
So aside from, mission and students
Jesus.
and what Jesus is doing, what one thing should people listening to this take home about
Probiotics
probos
and gut
their
health?
Just take care of your gut, guys. It's it really makes a difference. Yeah, not as much as Jesus.
Okay.
Come on.
Jesus or probiotics. Does Greek yogurt actually help? Is that a thing or not?
Really?
Okay,
No, that's kind of more like a marketing myth.
Okay.
I
Good
hate to
know.
say it.
Bit peak.
Exposed. Great. And tell us a little bit about what life was like growing up, your background, your childhood, family, but also, I guess, in relation to faith.
So I grew up in Spain and my family is atheist. So I never really heard about God or faith. The only times I did hear about it was kind of like just making fun of it, like mocking it.
Nice.
People with faith are a bit silly, a bit naive. And then I came to uni and I had a few friends that had faith, but it was kind of like they weren't living for Jesus. It was kind of more like religious. So again, it kind of reinforced my idea of like, oh, that's like a bit like the hypocrisy of it. And then 1.5 years ago, like last April, May, that's when I found faith.
Amazing. Tell us just before we get onto that, like, I know you hinted before your life was maybe a little bit crazy before you found Jesus. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Tell us what that actually looked like. What did that mean?
So I grew up on Mallorca and I lived very close to the Magaluf strip. And it was just a lot of crazy partying at like crazy ages, like 13, 14, doing a lot of things that, just really, oh gosh, it just makes me cringe a bit now thinking about it. I'll get a bit onto that later, but nothing satisfied. And it was just like this pursuit of like, well, this is what life must be like, because I really didn't know there was anything else. So yeah, bit of a crazy life, but didn't really know anything better.
And you came to university in Loughborough. What happened? Where did it all begin?
I came to uni when I had just turned 18. Very quickly, I started developing an eating disorder, like mental health problems. And oh gosh, sorry guys, that's me just jumping right in.
It's okay, go for it.
It is part of my story. And I really struggled with that for like 3 years. And then I couldn't find a way out. And that is where Jesus ultimately like came in and
Wow.
saved me.
Wow. And what did that look like? Was that an invitation from someone? Did you just rock up somewhere? What happened?
So there was this girl on my course at uni, and she knew about my eating disorder, and she knew that I was just trying to get out of that hole and I couldn't. And she just kept inviting me to Alpha and to Bible studies. And I think back then I just had the gift of desperation, and I was just so desperate that I was like, oh, you know what, fine, this is probably not going to work, but I'll give it a go. Best decision I ever made.
Nice. Up until this point, have you had any real engagement with faith? You said your home life, that wasn't really something you explored, you pursued. But is that something that had been like in the back of your mind, thinking, oh, maybe I'll try this one day? Or is it literally just I need something, let's give anything a go at this point?
I was just willing to give anything a go, to be honest. As I said, like, I didn't think it would work for me. I had a few friends that had faith. I think around that time as well, I saw what it did for them. And I remember thinking, I really want what my friend has, because she was one of my friends who I had known for quite a while as well, in like my first and second year of uni, and we actually went partying together quite a lot. And then suddenly, it seemed like she was just a completely different person, and she had a completely new life, and she was radiating like peace and joy. And I was like, girl, what's wrong with you? Like, what's happened to you? Yeah. And I think that was also such a significant part of me being willing to give it a go, like really seeing it like in action before me. I think it speaks louder than any words, just like seeing what Jesus can do for you. But yeah, I just had the gift of desperation. I was like, fine, I'll give it a go. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. So you've gone from being friends with this person. What was her name?
Elodie.
Elodie.
Yeah.
And you're on nights out together. And then you see a shift in her when she comes to know Jesus.
Yeah.
And that then makes you intrigued and say, yes, I guess that paired with the desperation to, what was it you were invited to?
Alpha.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. And how was that experience?
Amazing. I went there, and I think after like 2 or 3 Alpha nights, I got invited to go to the Open Heaven Student Weekend Away, which I signed up to, and then I immediately regretted signing up to that because it was just so out of my comfort zone. I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, and then I went to the weekend away, and I was like, somebody get me dunked now.
No way.
Yeah.
Just like that.
It was a really quick, intense like turnaround in my life for me. Yeah.
And what happened at Alpha that meant that you were up for going to the weekend away in the first place? Like, what had shifted there?
First of all, I think like just meeting people and like seeing that these people were something that I've never seen before. It was like loads of LODs in one place, like loads of just like joyful, radiant, bubbly people who genuinely seemed to care. I think that struck me the most, because I was always someone who all I cared about was myself, and seeing how these people were literally like sacrificing their time and their energy, and just like, how patient they were. And I was just there trying to like kind of trick them into like saying the wrong answers. And like I knew my way was right, and they were just so loving. Like it was almost like bombarding me with love. And I was like, wow, this is something that I've never experienced before. And it really, I don't even know what it did, but it like piqued something in me where I was like, I need to know more about this.
So what did you do?
So I went to the weekend away at Open Heaven, which was with other students, and it was so fun. It was so fun. And the leader there, on the last day, he asked a question to the students, which was something like, stand up if you feel like Jesus is telling you to give your life to him, or something like that. And I don't even remember, but apparently I stood up. And and I was one of the few people that stood up, because most people had already given their life to Jesus. And everyone was like looking at me, and I was like, again, immediately regret it. I was like, oh. But I really think that was just like, my spirit was like, I think we're home. I think this is really like something that I've been looking for my whole life. And it's a bit blurry, like when I think back to it, I don't really remember it all, but it just felt right. It felt like it was what I've been looking for my whole life.
Yeah. Great. And you came back from the weekend away. What was that like? I guess a weekend away can be a little bit like a Christian bubble, and it feels lovely at the time. And then you come back to the realities of life. How was that for you?
I had a lot of spiritual warfare going on, actually. I didn't know at the time, but I can see it now. And I think a couple nights after the weekend away, I was just in my room at 4 a.m. And I just couldn't sleep because of how sad I was and depressed I was. And I just opened my Bible, and that was the first time that I ever opened up my Bible on my own to read it. And I felt flooded with God's love and with his light. I just felt his presence. I dropped onto my knees, and I had already made my decision to give my life to Jesus at that point, like a couple days early at the weekend away. But that experience was like, it was all I needed. It was like, wow.
Yeah. God is here. God is for me. Can you remember what you read at the time, or you just remember?
Matthew.
Okay.
I didn't know where to start. I got told to not start at Genesis.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah, good advice. Yeah.
It was Matthew, and it was the Sermon on the Mount.
Okay.
Nice.
Wow.
And can I ask, so what do you do with that? You've just read the Bible, you just had this amazing encounter with God. What does engaging with the Bible look like after that?
That is such a good question. I'm so happy that you asked, because I was living with my 4 non-Christian flatmates at the time. And the next morning I ran downstairs and I was just, guys, God is real. I had an encounter with God last night. And they all looked at me as if I'd done drugs. They were like, Kim, what is wrong with you? And my one friend who gave her life to Jesus afterwards, she remembers that moment.
Wow.
So yeah, the first thing I wanted to do was just share it with my friends. I felt compelled to, and I knew they were going to think I was crazy, but I just had to share it. Yeah.
Amazing that your friend can reflect back and she remembers that as probably a key moment for her of going, something shifted here in Kim. I don't know what's happened, but something's changed.
Yeah.
So amazing. And hopefully an encouragement for anyone listening to just be open about the joys of knowing Jesus. Like, people will notice, and things will shift within people when we're just authentic about how much we love Jesus.
Exactly.
Amazing.
And the way that God uses that, like, we can just be and exist and live with Jesus and talk about him in our life. But then, like, Jesus is doing so much more
People notice,
in the
don't they?
background
Yeah.
Exactly.
that we can't anticipate and we can't see.
Yeah.
And how encouraging is it when people come back to us and say, I remember when you did this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what happened afterwards, I guess, in terms of like conversations with your family about your transformation?
Yeah.
How did that go? Yeah. What did they say?
Yeah. So my family was really unhappy. I think they were quite scared and quite shocked. They thought I was getting recruited into a cult.
Okay.
And I think especially because they've seen me struggle, at that point, they had seen me struggle for 3 years, just trying to get better, not being able to get better. I think they were quite concerned that I was just in a vulnerable place. And it was very, very tough. Like, they were trying to convince me to stop going to church, basically. And it was a lot of tears, a lot of like trying to explain to them, it's not about the church, it's about a relationship with Jesus. I can stop going to church, but it will not change the fact that I have a relationship with God now. And it was just a matter of like, I had to, whenever I went back home over the holidays, I was like reading my Bible in the bathroom, and it wasn't very welcoming, which was quite tough, to be fair, but just God gave me the strength to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said they were. Has that changed now?
So yes, they are much more like, I think now what happened to me with LOD is happening to them. They can see the change it's done for me.
Yeah.
They can really see, wow, like she is doing better. She is happy. And they're actually asking me like questions now, just out of curiosity, not trying to like, catch me out, which is really nice. And yeah, they know I carry my Bible everywhere I go, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah. It's amazing they've noticed the change. What are the things that you've noticed, I guess, about yourself in terms of what's changed since knowing Jesus?
I think honesty is a big thing. I think when I was in my eating disorder, I was just constantly trying to manipulate people into thinking that, there's nothing to worry about, and just dishonesty all the time. I wasn't an integral person. I was just a really, really depressed, hopeless person, to be fair. Like I would wake up every day and I would think, what's the point? And there were so many times where I just thought, you know, there's really no point, like there's really no purpose in life. And it was just this like hole that I couldn't get out of. Whereas now I wake up and I'm like, good morning, God. What have you got in store for me today? Yeah, I think just like my whole attitude, like upon life, it's just, there's hope, there's purpose. Yeah. It's just exciting, really. Yeah.
And what are some of the things, I guess, from your old life that you've learned to surrender, to let go of, that were maybe part of a lot of your life growing up?
That is such a good question. Control is the biggest one for me. I think eating disorders are so much about control as well. And even before the eating disorder, like just before I, you know, throughout my whole life, I just thought I was this girl who had to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders. Like I had to be in control of everything, because if not, nobody's going to look out for me. Like I need to do this. And one of the greatest things, you know, about entering into a relationship with God is entering into his rest. Like I can just hand over my worries and my fears, and I can trust that my Father is taking care of it. And I can just like almost like relax and be like, oh, you know, this is great. I don't need to worry. Yeah. So control is a big one, and one that keeps coming up as well. You know, I love to want to go back to my life, to my old life, but it's such a big change.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I guess in terms of like discipleship and people getting alongside you, what has that looked like in terms of the church and friends helping you to grow in your faith and help, I guess, to answer some of the questions?
Yeah. Open Heaven has been incredible. Like they have just given me what I've, again, always looked for, which is a real community. I think before coming to know Jesus, I always struggled with feeling connected to people. And I always thought that I would never find, you know, a real place where I belong and where I fit in. And it's for the first time ever, I really feel like I do. It's honestly, it's just incredible. And yeah, they've been so patient with me and answering all of my questions. And, you know, especially at the beginning when I was just like a baby Christian, and I was like, there were so many things I didn't know about. Like, I didn't know you can't swear. Like, you're not, you know, it doesn't glorify God when you swear.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was there swearing, and they were just like so loving, like not, you know, non-judgmental, and just like, God will show her, God will tell her.
Yeah.
And I think this like non-judgmentalism and this like acceptance, it was just great. And it's helped me to then disciple others. So my best friend, she came to find faith as well. She came to my baptism, and then after that, she was like, you know, I'm gonna give church a go. I've seen what it's done for you, and I want to give it a go now. And another very close friend of mine, she recently started reading the Bible with me, and she's also thinking of giving her life to Jesus. And it's just so exciting.
Come on.
So you've been discipled well by other people, and now you're doing the same. Go on, John.
Well, can I ask what does that look like? You know, you're walking with your mates, inviting them to church. Like for some people who are listening, they'll be thinking, "What? How do I do that? Where do I even begin?"
Yeah.
What does that look like?
I think again, it's something that like you don't really need to worry about what you say. It's kind of just like they will see the change in you, and they will want what you have. And I think if it's someone who's known you for their whole life, it is so evident, maybe not even to you, but it is so evident to the people in your life what a dramatic change has happened in you. And then when people ask, just be honest. Kim, why are you so cheerful? Why are you so happy? Like, it's 7 a.m. Jesus. That's the God glow. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's like that honesty and that gentleness. And also, to be fair, I think self-control is a big one. When I found faith, I wanted to just tell everyone immediately and drag them to church with me. And I had to be like, you know, again, I'm not in control. I need to hand that over to God and trust that he's got it. And all I can do is like, I can do my part and God will do the rest.
Yeah. And I know as we were chatting before this interview, you were talking about what it means to have your identity in Christ. And I guess your particular passion, I guess, for females specifically, to know what it means for their identity in Christ. So what is it that you would say to those who are listening around that?
Oh, yeah, I think identity is a huge one, especially for girls. I always felt like, I think people always think that eating disorders are just like this silly teenage girl disease, that will come to pass with time. But it actually goes way deeper than that. It actually, it stems from this like inherent belief that you are unlovable. And I think for me, coming to know that God loves me, and not just loves me, but like really adores me and like really accepts me as I am, whether I'm in that body or in whatever way I think I need to transform myself to be acceptable to the world. It all doesn't matter to God. And it's actually detestable in his eyes because he just wants peace for me and to not be obsessed around things of this world. So yeah, I think it's like just coming to know your identity is in like, and I think it comes with time. And I still struggle with that a lot, to be honest. But I get more and more glimpses of like just how much, God says that I'm okay the way that I am. And also that like God loves you with all your flaws. He chose you with your flaws. And if there's anything that he will want you to change, he will do it.
Yeah.
He will show you. He will convict you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for sharing your story, but also just for being really open and honest about the things that you've been through, but also what it is that God has done in your life. And thank you so much for coming on here today.
Thank you.
Thank you
So much for inviting me. Thank you.
What an amazing conversation with Kim. Absolutely love her story. And I loved that she noticed the difference in her friend who had come to know Jesus. And that's what kind of sparked her intrigue. And I think that's a challenge for all of us to realize that actually we reflect Jesus and people notice Jesus in us as we spend more and more time with him. We become to look a lot more like him. And that hopefully allows other people to notice the change in us. That then led her to Alpha, led her to this encounter at the student weekend away. And her life is just utterly transformed now. It's amazing and an inspiring story.
And another student who's had their life transformed is Dan, who we're going to hear from next.
Well, hello, Dan. Welcome to the podcast. Good to have you with us. How are you doing?
Yeah, good.
Good. Tell us a little bit about what you're up to at university, I guess.
Yeah, so I'm a postgraduate student. So I've just started my PhD in astrophysics. So I'm looking at, we'll say exoplanets. It's specifically brown dwarfs, which are failed stars. They never get big enough to be stars, but they're too big to be planets. So they're slightly luminous, but nowhere near as stars. And I'm investigating those.
What are you investigating about them?
So currently there's not many of them. So
Okay.
if you look at how many planets we know, how many low mass stars we know like thousands of them. Brown dwarfs, we know 50. These are ones that transit. So you've got your star and then they transit around. There's other ones which are isolated. Physics has loads of nitty gritty, weird complications, but investigating those. And because we don't know a lot about them, finding more, but then also the ones we do know, trying to figure out a bit more about them. That's the plan.
That is strong.
That's incredible.
I feel like I've learned something new already this morning. That's great.
How much of your time do you spend explaining what a brown dwarf is, to people?
Probably actually more than I would like to say. It depends how long the conversation is going to go. If the conversation's like a quick one and done, I'll just say exoplanets because it's like quick. You can just say a planet outside the solar system and like it's there. Like people just get that. You don't need to explain it. If it's like people are actually interested, you do the
Then
longer.
you can elaborate. But do most people look at you pretty blankly when you say brown dwarf?
Oh yeah. Apart from the youth. So I do youth at my church.
Youth?
But like I talk to other physicists and they don't know what it is, which is fair. Like they're so niche. And then the youth were asking, what do you do? I started explaining. They were like, no, I know what that is.
No way.
No way.
I was like,
the youth of today, guys. Come on.
Like, why? But yeah, so fun facts. Kids 13 years old now know what a brown dwarf is in astrophysics.
They are smarter than we are
Yeah.
at that age. That's crazy. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We're really, really looking forward to hearing your story. But I guess first it would be really helpful to get a little bit of background on, I guess, your childhood, family life, what it was like for you in terms of faith and religion, especially, I guess.
Yeah. So I grew up in a non-Christian household. So I have mum, dad, sister. And faith, kind of like the idea of faith existed, like something could be out there, but it was never really discussed. Like we're we weren't really atheists, we weren't really agnostic. It just wasn't really, like I say, discussed. And then, just kind of grew up and never really considered it. Like I said, it kind of was oblivious, I guess is the best word to it. Like, it was a house of like strong morals, and my mum and dad always made sure, like, say thank you, treat people well, like all like what you would say is like the key like thoughts are like love people in Christianity, but never really anything backing behind that.
Yeah, fascinating. And are your whole family quite scientific as well? Have you come from quite like it's a headspace family?
No, not at all. So my mum's a maths teacher, but she only did that when she was in her 30s, 40s. And my dad's very much, very hands-on. He's a mechanic, and he like left school when he was 16. And there's a whole story behind that. But so not very head thinking.
Yeah, fascinating. And then you came to university, and something must have shifted for you because you're here today. So tell us a little bit about your story, your testimony, where it all began.
Yeah, so for me, it's a lot of friends. So when I came to university, there was, as everyone, you kind of lived in lodgings with like a few other people. And one of the people there had done a foundation year, and he knew someone else in the student accommodation who he knew from the previous year, and they were meeting up. And I went along with that person, and my friend Josh went along with them. And through that, I met Josh, and he was also doing physics. I was like, do you want to catch the bus tomorrow? The classic, when you're young, do you want to walk to school together?
Yeah, nice.
But catching the bus, adults. And he was Christian, and it kind of all like started from there.
Wow. So it's purely through friendship and relationship.
Yeah, basically.
Amazing. So you then got involved in the Christian Union?
Yeah. So Josh had some friends, Tash and James, and they were all very open about, we're going to Christian Union, do you want to go? And just very, invited to all the Christian events, which, it's, so looking back on it, and me being now the Christian now, it's a lot harder but I did it really well. And there was one time where, so in physics we had labs, and they'd go from like 2 till 5, and we'd finished on a Thursday, and I was going home because it's 5 o'clock and you're tired. And Josh was like, I'm sticking around for the Christian Union. Do you want to come? And I was like, nah, don't worry. And then I was literally 1 foot on the bus, and I was like, how bad can this be? And then I went off to a library and joined them guys. And I am now sitting here. So how bad could it be? You decide.
Yeah.
Was there anything about Josh? Did you know that he was a Christian before we talked about the Christian Union? Did he do anything differently?
I wouldn't say so, because of my upbringing. Because I say, kind of the people I interacted with, it was quite a small town, and, there wasn't like any massive conflict. So for me, he was just kind of like, I guess, normal. No real massive difference to kind of people I hung out with before, just maybe a bit more mature. So had you had much experience of faith, of church, of Christians, or other religious people as well? It was mostly Christians. So because my town, it was, we don't really have many other faiths, but I was part of cadets, so did the memorial services, so I went along to those. But it was more of like, I'm not going to say obligation, because it was an obligation, but those certain events. I maybe went to the odd Christmas service as a kid, maybe the odd Easter service, but it was never like, oh, we're here for. It was just more of a, I'm here now. It was like, there was no real reason behind me being there other than the event, if you get what I mean.
And can I just ask, I guess a lot of people might assume if someone is I guess a scientific person and also has grown up in an atheist household, they might be the hardest people to convince to come along to something Christian that believes in a God when I guess you've got a scientific brain. So what is it that intrigued you to go along in the first place?
What intrigued? You look back and there's so many of these things that like so key in your life, and you generally can't really think of why you did it. And I think I'm kind of there of why did I go along? If I'm looking back, probably because my friends were there, and you're like, oh, well, I just want to have a night with my friends. And, this is one way of getting in, I guess. I say that, but then also on the same night I signed up for a Christian weekend away. So,
on the same night?
And made that, or maybe the week after.
So that's like the first couple of times you've been to the Christian Union?
Yeah, and I decided to go on a weekend away, which was...
Why? Just purely for the giggles?
I think it's that idea of like your friends are going, you don't want to kind of be like that step behind.
Yeah.
And then you're like, all these people are quite nice. So it's not like I'm going to like a weekend with like mad people.
Okay, if you say
you
so.
Felt safe.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, and you're just like, okay, well, maybe it's worth exploring, I guess. Maybe that was part of it, but it won't be too bad. But then also just like probably mostly to spend some time with some friends, I know.
Wow. I love how everything about your story is just purely relationship based.
Yeah, it is just kind
of. And
I
think that is encouraging for other students to hear, because they're like, but if my friend's like got a scientific brain, I'm going to need to know all these theological answers to where science matches up with God and all these kinds of things. But actually, for so many people, it's purely just based on relationship, especially when you're new to university, I guess, as well, and you're trying to make friends.
Yeah, it is. Like, they were just very open. And it's like something I talk, like when people ask, like, how do you share faith? And bear in mind, I'm still nowhere near the expert. But like asking them, it's just the best thing, like treat it naturally. Like if someone says, who's your favorite football team? You wouldn't like think about it too much. You'd be like this. You'd share your passion in that sense. Like if it becomes natural in your life when you talk about it, what am I doing? I'm going to the Christian Union tonight. It is just that, oh, that's something they do. And it doesn't become, you don't make it bigger than it is. Like I feel like sometimes we put so much pressure on it because it's God and it's Jesus and we want people to know it, that we don't want to say something wrong. But in that then comes across as natural, and it doesn't mean, go saying random stuff, but like also just make it part of your life. Which I think is both the easiest and hardest part in some senses.
And was there a significant moment in your journey, in your story, where you thought, actually, yep, I believe this for myself. I am making this decision now to commit my life to Jesus?
Kind of yes and no, in the sense of there's a moment when I decided to actually maybe look at it further, and there's a point when I kind of like shifted in believing it. So I went through first year exams, were quite tricky. I'd always been fine with exams, and then suddenly this time I was very anxious. And then after the exams, that kind of anxiety like continued. And I was very much like, I have everything in my life. I've got, I'm privileged enough to be at studying university, studying physics. I'm good at physics. Like I'm actually quite high in that. Some people just want to be really good at subjects, and I have that. I have a loving family. I have great friends, and yet I have everything, and yet I don't. Like it's so easy, just like, why do I have anxiety about anything if like you have everything type thing? And I was like, well, something's missing. And it's quite a hard holidays of just kind of sitting in that and like not really getting over that hump, and it's slowly drifting away, but never really getting over it. And then in second year, I was like, let's investigate this a bit further. Kind of the idea of, okay, if it exists, that changes something. If it doesn't, well, we've got to figure that out later. But like at least, and then in second year, followed it up, investigated further. And then at one point in February, it was just at a church service. Ironically, so Josh, my friend, he had his then girlfriend over for just over because she lived in Sweden. And she was going to church, but they all were. And I was like, well, I can't look like a bad friend and not go to church. So I went along with them, to look like a good person, I guess. And that was my first church experience. And then I carried on, and then it was mid-February. I think I did that in November. And then it was February when I kind of was in a church service, and I just was crying, and I couldn't really figure it out. And then after it, I was like, yeah, I want to commit to this. Which didn't solve everything. Funny, the day after, I was so like, what do I do now? I literally remember sitting in a electromagnetism lecture, just kind of like, I have no idea what to do. But that's probably the moment when, the definitive moment.
And talk to me, I guess, about the people that have got alongside you as part of your journey, who have helped to disciple you. I know when you said you were investigating faith, who is it who's been helping you with that? But also since you've committed your life to Jesus, who's got alongside and helped to disciple you in faith?
Yeah, so also my three friends, Josh, Tash, James, I lived with them in second year, third year. So I lived with them, and also
you lived with all Christians.
Yeah, it was that.
Wow, by second and third year, that's crazy.
Yeah, so it was that odd of 1v3 in that situation, a kind of odd person, which was always a funny conversation with family. But I just ask questions. I always try to explain it. I went along to in my first year some like discipleship nights with like a few other people, with some friends. James invited me to, and the leader of that, who was a student worker at the Christian Union, bless him, he stayed some late nights, me asking some tricky questions. Bless him, he started an hour walk back from where I was ran back to his house. So thank you very much for that. I think my friends discipled me through that. But then there was also at the church I'm now at, the church pastor, Josh Smith. I know so many Joshes.
Sorry, his name was Josh Smith.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah,
What a great. Sounds like a legend.
There you go.
His name was Josh Smith before he got married.
Yeah. Mate,
so there you go.
I'd love to say it's unique.
It's a good name.
But
keep going.
So he took time out and met with me, and we had a few coffees over it. And now Callum Hearn, who's He helps disciple me through, and we just meet up and chat and just plod along, I guess.
Yeah, plodding along. That's so good. So you're coming along to church.
Yeah.
At what point is there a shift between I'm just here for the people that are here. I love the relationships. My mates are here. This is basically a social club.
Yeah.
At what point does that shift to something more?
I generally don't know. I think it was that kind of like February when I was like, okay, maybe this is something more. But it probably was something happening like subconsciously before that. But then even after that, like figuring out what that looks like. I think it was then third year, which then, then put a lot more effort into trying to make that like what it looks like type thing.
What did that effort look like?
I don't know, like going along to like young adults, like trying to get more involved in like small groups, like figuring things out beyond just I believe in this. What does that actually mean to believe this? Well, like what is it? Which sounds odd being a scientist, kind of going into it being informed and yet still not informed. But yeah.
And how's your family responded to, I guess, you finding faith?
Yeah, it's a tricky one because I'll be the first to admit, if there's one thing I could change about my Christian journey, it would be how I treated with my family. Because I think I did it really badly. I just wasn't very like open with it and very like honest. I kind of like avoided questions, and I guess in a sense of like not wanting to know how they'd, which sounds odd because I love my family and they're great. So like, I'm not sure why I was so nervous about like how they would respond, how they'd treat me different. So they knew I'd go along to Christian Union, and then I didn't really say how I was going in that journey. And then when I became a Christian in second year and I really said that, I was still just going along to the Christian Union. And then in third year, I decided to get baptized, and I kind of needed that decision. I needed to tell them, I was like, do you want to come to my baptism? And I was going to ask them over the Christmas holidays because I was getting baptized in March. And then the holidays came and kept going. And it's the day before I needed to go to university back. And I was like, do you want to come along to my baptism? Kind of leaving it to that last minute. And they came along, and they're now like very comfortable with it. Like, they understand it. I still ask questions, which is great. Still on their own journey with it as such. But yeah, it's one thing I wish I would have treated if just being more open and honest where I was at, what I was doing, like kind of leading them along the journey instead of I'm like hiding through the trees, I guess.
Yeah.
Was that out of fear of like how they would respond, or?
I guess maybe that's a good way of saying it. Like, I'm not so much sure if it's like fear, but maybe like uncertainty. Yeah. But like that part of my, like that uni life and that home life, that one place that kind of doesn't intersect, which obviously now I'm muddling through now. But yeah, I think, that's probably the best way of it, like explaining it.
And what has changed in your life since knowing Jesus, or what difference does Jesus make in your life?
It's such a great question because it's both everything, and then in the same times, like it's hard to figure out sometimes like what has actually changed. Like on the outside, like I don't swear anymore, so that's an easy, obvious change. Yeah. Like there's some things which you have a bit more peace in, or you can go to, but then sometimes I'm still muddling through the still like having that faith, having that trust, like kind of the rewiring of your brain type stuff. So I'm not there yet, but I think I'm getting there. So I guess in that sense changing, but not changed.
Yeah.
And so you said when you first became a Christian, that next day you were like, what's changed? What's going on? What am I doing? Tell us a bit more about that. How have you progressed from that point? What changed?
So I remember I was always saying to Josh Smith in these coffees, I was like, I have the head knowledge. Like I believe Jesus could exist, but I didn't have the heart knowledge. Like I didn't really actually believe it. And then after that moment, ironically it flipped of like, I believed it in my heart, and then my head was like not able to comprehend it. So since that, I've kind of, being a physicist and such, gone deep into like what certain things mean, what certain things look like, how like Genesis, what's that look like? Me, when I read Genesis for the first time, realizing half it's actually all about Abraham and his family, not just the Adam and Eve. I expect like 40 chapters of that, and I was like, whoa, when's this come across? I think there's still some things like I come muddling through. Like I still struggle with anxiety at points. Like I'm not fully fiddle that out as such. Yeah. Being that you have a bit more trust of hope of what's to come, you know that you're not going to sit in it forever. Like you've got a bit more progression, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and we're hoping actually it will inspire other students to invite their friends along, especially I guess maybe freshers who have just started in the last kind of month or so, to be as bold as your friends were in inviting you along and inviting you just to experience what it is to come along to the Christian Union, to come along to a weekend away a couple of weeks in and to explore it. And I think we forget the power of relationship, of friendship, especially when we're new to university as well. Just for my own intrigue, and hopefully it will be helpful for others. What would you say to people who are listening who say that you can't be a scientist and also believe in God?
Yeah, it's such a great question because I think it gets used, but it's kind of like not like fully explored. And I said this before, and I say it a lot because there's this great quote from Heisenberg, who's a quantum mechanics person. So if you know like Schrodinger's cat, like that kind of area. But he has this quote of, the first sip of natural sciences turns you into an atheist, but at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you. And it's this kind of idea of science on the surface thinks it solves a lot of things. Like, you know, you get the idea of the Big Bang. Oh my God, like God doesn't exist. And then kind of the further you go down it, you kind of realize, oh, the Big Bang doesn't solve anything. Like, you know, we still have no idea how the Big Bang started. Like, there's still no ideas there. And how do you involve God in that? So there's still so many questions. And yes, science may solve certain things of how the world works, but it doesn't mean God's existence in the science doesn't exist. And I think there's that weird balance, and in faith of balancing those and like trusting that, science might not solve something, but then yes, God's there, and doesn't mean God doesn't match the science. I think it's always like, if you are that Christian, like holding God to that, like don't try and disprove God with science. Like God created the world, created the science. Like there's a psalm which I always love, and it says like God created the boats. Like, well, someone obviously created the boats in that sense of like someone made them. But it's like God created it. So in that sense, like God created physics, God created biology, God created chemistry.
Yeah, that's great. We're going to come into land now, but if you could give one piece of advice to a student at the moment who is wanting to, I guess, invite their friend to know Jesus, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I think like when you do it from the start, if you're fresh and you've got new friends, it's always easier if you just like be honest and start from the start. You don't have to do 1 year in, I go to the Christian Union. I've been going for a year, by the way. And it just kind of feels, it's hard that way. So like, if you're doing Christian Union, if you are Christian, if you're going to church, just be natural. If someone asks, what do you do on the weekend? I went to church. And in that, like, if you're always honest about where you're at, you'll always have the opportunity to invite them, because it's not something that's just random out of the blue. So just, if you can weave it into your life of just actually embody of, this is something I do. And you can be natural of, I go to Christian Union, I go to church, I go to a small group. Do you want to come along this Sunday? What you up to? Do you want to come along? Like, you can weave those in a lot easier than if you try and, to not be judged, you try and hide it for 6 months, because then at some point people are going to figure out anyway. So don't try and hide it in that sense, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, to start just being authentically you. If you're starting university, or you're going into, even if you're going into your second or third year, like just start the year afresh, being authentically yourself and who you are, and not being ashamed of the gospel, I guess.
Yeah,
come on.
So yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for your time, and we cannot wait to see everything else that God does in your life.
Thank you very much.
Oh, so good to hear Dan's story. What a privilege it is. Absolute legend, and so cool to hear of how he came to faith and how that shaped his life. Really struck by the power of invitation and relationship there. This kind of duality of the way that his mates walked alongside him and encouraged him, but all they did was they just invited him. And just because of the relationship that he had with them, he thought, okay, yeah, let's give it a go. So just as an encouragement for us and for you listening, what could an invitation look like for you with your mates?
Yeah, that's right. We're going to get into our final conversation now, and that is with Christian. Christian, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very, very good. Thank you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a student at Loughborough. I'm going into my third year. I study sports science. I'm 20 years old now.
Come on.
I do athletics. I train athletics for the Loughborough athletics team, but obviously also doing my studies on the side.
Okay.
And yeah, that's
good stuff. Do you have like a dream job that you would want to do off the back of it?
Absolutely not.
Leave your options open. That sounds like a really wise decision.
Yeah, I mean, I like to put my effort into kind of as many things as I can and just see what comes out of it.
Yeah.
Obviously focusing on my degree, but also getting involved in absolutely anything and seeing what comes about, what opens up. So yeah, I'm not too sure yet. That's kind of, you'd think as a third year, you'd start to connect the dots and get around to that, but not quite yet, but we're working on it. So.
I don't think you're alone in that as a third year. Don't worry. Okay. We've all been there. Were you there, Josh?
It took me 2 years till I left uni to work out what I wanted to do. So you've still got at least 2 years before you're behind me.
No.
So you're all good. You're all good.
Okay.
And tell us a little bit about what life was like growing up in your household, I guess, your background, but also in terms of faith, I guess.
Yeah. So I grew up when I was very young. My dad was actually an atheist, and my mum was a very strong Christian. She grew up in a Christian household, Orthodox Christian. So I'm part Eritrean, part English. So it's an Eritrean Orthodox, and that's where my mum would kind of just teach me about that. And when I was about 5 or so, my kind of dad became a Christian and actually now is a priest.
Wow.
So
No way.
Quite a jump
What
from
What a U-turn.
atheist to priest. So yeah, as I was growing up, I was kind of in the church and learning about it, but I definitely felt like it was kind of more my parents' faith, and it was just a thing that, people just go to church, you go to the Sunday groups, things like that. Yeah, no, that kind of starts to develop, and as I got older, I got more questions, and when it got to about COVID time, that's it kind of put everything on a halt in terms of going to services, things like that. And now coming to uni, this is kind of making a long story short, like coming to uni, I then found Fusion and started to actually grow my faith with God at that point. But before then, it was more of just trying to answer questions and looking at it from a critical point of view.
Okay.
Rather than just, I find it difficult to just believe things. So I kind of critically went into it, listened to scholars or just other priests and stuff on these quite difficult topics. But yeah, it was only when I came to Fusion that I started to actually build my faith and build that connection. So
you would say you had quite like an intellectual faith. You were interested in all of the head knowledge, I guess. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I never liked going to, if it was a Bible study or if it was just any sort of gathering, people talking about questions or having questions and then no one having an answer for it. And then just sitting there, and I felt like I'd left those places like that was still on my mind.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to just leave it there. So I'd, did my best to help other people with their questions, but also realizing that actually I don't know enough about this and building up on that, I guess.
Yeah. So it's fair to say before university, you're at a point where maybe you believed in God, but you didn't have your own personal relationship. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. That's one of the big things is feeling the presence of God. And as much as I learnt about it and tried to, like I say, critically look into it, I definitely don't think I felt the presence of God. I could see it in the people around me and how it was changing their lives and experiences with my mum and my dad and stuff.
Yeah.
But for myself, I never really felt that or maybe recognized it or anything until, last year, to be honest. That's when, I guess I felt that presence and I was like, okay, I want to look into this side. I've looked at, the Bible critically as much as I, can, I guess, but looking at what God's love is actually like. And I think that's what a lot of people are looking for and wanting to draw to as well. Yeah. That's something which is quite profound in a way and quite difficult. It's not something you just get from, some people get that in through reading the Bible, through prayer, through certain things. But I guess last year, that's when God's presence kind of came to me in that point. But yeah.
So things kind of shifted for you last year. In your very first year of university, what was faith like for you? So did you get involved in a church straight away when you came along? What did it look like for you?
Well, I think my focus when I first came was looking literally into athletics. I was trying to find an athletics group, trying to find an athletics team, because I wanted my transition from my old club into the one here to be as smooth as possible. And I regret it, but I didn't really look for a church much. And I kind of didn't think that from the conversations I was hearing and what people were talking about, I didn't really think there were any Christians like at Loughborough.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah. I genuinely just kind of thought, okay, well, it's just me, and I'm going to carry on with what I did when I was during COVID, which was listening to sermons online, Orthodox sermons or, stuff like that. But I thought, okay, well, I guess this is kind of what church is going to be like for me, and actually didn't find one until the end of my second year. So that first year I was didn't know there were any churches, so it was quite a surprise when I did run into OH or Open Heaven, and see how many people were there and how many people were also passionate about God and about the church.
So when did you come into contact with OH?
So last year I was basically I had quite a bad injury, and it was quite a difficult time. And I basically, my schedule was a bit all over the place. And it was on a Sunday. I was just walking kind of through campus, and I came into the student union, and I just went to the co-op to get some food. And as I walked out, I basically just turned my head, and through one of the windows, I saw Matthew 5, which was is the Sermon on the Mount for people who don't know. And that was actually the Bible verse I was reading the night before. So I'd watched The Chosen, and there's a quite good depiction of the Sermon on the Mount. I'd say that's my the Bible verse that I connect to quite a lot and find very interesting, kind of the core of Jesus' teaching. And I basically just saw it through the window, and kind of still with a critical mind in a way. I guess I was like, okay, well, I'll just see what's going on in there. And I saw a service going on. I was quite surprised. And I just stood at the back. I just kind of stood at the back, same thing, critically listening to the teaching that the person I can't remember who was actually in front. I think Rob was actually in front for a bit. But anyway, I was just listening to that. And then it got to a point where I was saying, if anyone feels like they want to just come sit down during this prayer time, sit at the front, then please, by all means do. And everything in my body was telling me, get out of the room, just go back home, forget, just eat some food and, relax. But I just felt drawn to go and sit down. I didn't really know why. I wasn't, I had other things that were going on in my life, but there wasn't something at the forefront being like, I need to go sit at the front, I need prayer for certain things and stuff. But I just sat down at the front, and before I knew it, I was just in tears. Like I was just crying, just so much. And the thing is, I'm someone who definitely feels emotion, but doesn't show it through crying. So it was quite weird for me at that point. I'm like sitting there and I don't know why I'm crying.
Yeah.
And one of the, kind of staff members, one of the people from the prayer team came over to me called Rowan. And he started praying for me. And before he asked if I needed any prayer, and I was like, I don't know what I need prayer for, but if you just want to pray, please do. And actually everything that he was praying about was something that was on my mind throughout like that whole week. And to be honest, the whole year really. So that was the second, like, what is going on? This is really weird. But then after about kind of, he leaves me for a bit and I just sit there, and then I get up and I go to the back, and a guy called Piers, who I've done an athletics competition with, box with, was standing at the back, and he came over to me to comfort me. And then I realized, there's actually, there's people I know who are here. There's people actually at the church, people who do the same thing I do, who are doing their studies, but also it's not like their faith is something on the backbone, like on the side. It's something that's really part of their life. So it's really, and from an older person as well, I think two years older than me, maybe. He was definitely someone I can go to and just speak to about his experience as well and what it's like for him. And then Rob came over and prayed for me, spoke with me. And then we had a little Bible study the next day at one of the, I can't remember the name of it, but one of the cafes in town. And then he introduced me to their small group. And then I just from there met the rest of Open Heaven. Yeah, it was that when I talk about kind of feeling the presence of God, it was definitely at that moment where I felt drawn to go sit at the front, and just feeling that love, that love that God has for each and every one of us. In that moment, I was like, this is what especially evangelism, this is what, evangelism truly is showing kind of the world the love God has for us. Not just necessarily preaching at them from, for someone like me, who's quite critical in terms of delving into the Bible and stuff. Actually, what connected with me wasn't learning,
yes,
but actually, not that that's not important, but actually just feeling that love that God has for me and for every one of us at that moment is what started my connection and I'd say faith.
So at this point, you've kind of spent quite a while exploring what Christianity is, what it could be for you.
Yeah.
Like in your own home on your ones, just you with your Bible and going through getting verse by verse, understanding what that looks like, and you come along to OH and experience the presence of God.
Yeah.
You experience, but through people, so much. You've got things where it sounds like God is kind of leaping out at you using the people in the church. What's it like to be a part of the community, to not be on your ones, but to be talking to people and being like, so this is for you and this is for me, and let's connect.
Yeah, I think it's that's what a church is. It's not just the building, it is that community, it is that group of people. And that's something which I'm so grateful to be a part of and feel like I'm genuinely a part of it. And that wasn't just after a few weeks, that was that same day, as soon as I walked in, when Rob, when Piers, and I'm pretty sure Ollie as well, but other people coming up to me, showing me what that love's like, showing me like, you're a part of this from as soon as you want to be a part of this, you're a part of this. This isn't like something where you need to, like from a sports thing, go through trials and all that stuff. It's like, you're a part of this. And, we want to help you as much as we can, but also let God do his work, not take control of it, but do his work. And we're just here to help in the ways we can help. And I definitely think from all those people in there, they're all people I can, go to, speak to. If I have any questions, I think maybe people listening to this as well, there's questions that you only feel comfortable asking people your age. And when I was in a church where, I'm with 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds, things like that, it's hard to relate. It's a different time. It's a very different time, So it's nice to speak to people who are experiencing the same thing you are, who are dealing with, if it's exam stress, if it's what the future kind of holds for you and stuff like that. So just being part of that, I'm so grateful for. And hopefully I can, help other people as well. And
for a long time you believed in God, and then that shifted to a relationship with Jesus. What's the difference for people listening between, I guess, just believing in God versus actually having a relationship with Jesus or encountering the power of the Holy Spirit?
Yeah, I think with belief, there is doubt in that. I think I don't believe in you. I mean, I know you guys are here. I think you don't believe in your parents or, your family and stuff like that. You know that they're there. And I think when I was having that critical view, there's a sense of belief, but there's also a sense of doubt. And it's almost trying to find anything to almost back that up or looking into. And actually when you have that faith, there's a level of just not understanding. It definitely is quite difficult to put into words, but I guess when I felt that presence, I was like, I don't really understand what's going on. I don't know why it's going on. I can't really quantify it. I can't find an answer for it, but I know there's something going on here, and I'm really interested in that. I'm really interested in, sometimes I guess people like to try explain things off with other if it's psychological experiences or things like that. But I guess for people who are looking for it, I'd been looking for it for so long. I just felt that presence and I was like, okay, well, I might be losing my mind right now. I might be going crazy, but this is something I want to explore and get close to. And that's that journey in faith, that journey with God is just not really knowing what necessarily the next step is, but just taking that next step and seeing, letting God create that path for you, but just taking the steps on that path, I guess.
And how's it made a difference to your life?
Massive difference. I think especially, so last year I was, for those who are listening who are like in Loughborough, there's kind of this joke of the Loughborough Triangle. I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
Is that where students live or something?
It's basically where it's this idea of you go from your lectures to your training to your accommodation and just back in this triangle.
It's all a triangle.
It's all a triangle.
Right.
Like the Loughborough experience is basically you're going to training, you're going to eat, you're going to your lectures, and you're just constantly doing that.
Okay.
When you're out of that, I felt, which I was last year, I just felt extremely lonely, very isolated.
Yeah.
And it was such a shift from training, as quite a few people at Loughborough do, is, 5 sessions a week to, trying to go to one, but it not really, not being able to do that. That was definitely a quite difficult experience. I felt very disconnected, and actually coming to church, finding Open Heaven, I'd never felt more connected. Even from when I was training, everything was going well. I definitely didn't feel as connected as I do now. Coming to uni the past 2 years, there's quite a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of, worry about how things are going to pan out for a lot of, freshers as well. They're worried about making friends, what people are going to be like, if they're going to relate and stuff like that. But coming to Open Heaven, even though knowing that everyone is, completely different in their background. I mean, I've only been here like a week or so, and it's just been such an amazing week being able to just go straight to, like I came on the Sunday and went straight to the service, did a food shop, went straight to the service, and just felt like nothing's changed. Like it's been, 4 months or so, and I'm back, and it's like, I'm just, connected, and it's honestly wonderful. It's just amazing, and I'd recommend anyone to find, a youth church or anything like that That's all I can say.
That's
really.
great.
Yeah.
And what would you say to students who are listening, who have come to university, maybe they're a fresher, maybe they're in second or third year, and they've not connected to a church, they've not found a church, they've grown up around a bit of faith, belief in God, but they've not found a church at university. What would you say to them?
I'd say prayer is your best friend. Ultimately, be aware of the churches around you. Try to look for churches and stuff, but I do believe God will place you into the right place for you at the right time. Now I know there's so many other churches, but I believe that there's a reason why I've been guided to Open Heaven rather than any of the others. That's not to say that their churches are wrong or anything like that. The other ones aren't right. It's just that there's going to be God's intervention in it, and ultimately you want the connection with God. That's your primary objective, is the connection with God, and the church is there to help you. And focusing on the church and everything about the church is great, but shouldn't take priority. So don't put any pressure on yourself or worry, too much about that, but just pray and keep your eyes open, because there are people, and have the conversations with people around you. You'll be surprised. There are so many people around you who are actually are Christians, or are even, who aren't Christians, but are curious about about what that relationship with God looks like. And that's when those conversations happen. So Can
I ask very quickly, you mentioned your dad's now a priest, and your mum's been a committed Christian. I guess like your new experience of faith, what impact has that had on your family and on your friends back home? And
for them, I think that the only impact I say is they've, I guess, noticed a difference in, when we were talking about kind of the fruits of the Spirit and stuff, it's like, that's not something you can just force. And I think as of now that, people are seeing that. Like my girlfriend said to me, we were just calling after that one of the Sunday services, and she said, you always seem, so much happier after those services. And it's not something that I just picked up on, but it's something that, I guess people recognize, and maybe that's something that almost God uses for people to see and to understand. It's not like it's necessarily coming from me. It's that joy of God that's almost been shined, I guess, through me. So people can get a glimpse of what that's like. But in terms of like my family and stuff, one of the things that's also changed is I'm very fortunate I'm able to go to my dad and ask about whatever question I have. Like there's a lot of times in our small groups where we've had people who aren't Christians or that may be agnostic or curious about certain things, and we'll ask questions and we don't have the answer right then. And a lot of the time we won't, but being able to go and look for that answer and having, you know, my dad who's spent time studying Hebrew and Aramaic and, you know, other languages as well that are heavily intertwined into the Bible. I'm very lucky for that, and very blessed to be able to use that and, you know, just pass that information on really. But yeah, I don't know if that particularly answers.
No, that's great. That's great. And great to hear your story, Christian, and just the difference it's made in your life, having that, I guess, encounter with Jesus at OH1 and seeing the shift and the change in you, and the change from like getting involved in God's church, in his body, right? In his people, because the church are the people. And I guess for any freshers who are watching who haven't yet found a church at university, this is your encouragement to find a church. It can be scary. Like it is a whole new experience to come to a new city or a new town. But as Fusion, we've also got the Student Link Up app, which you can download. It will tell you all the churches in your university, town or city, tell you how far the walk is. As a student worker myself, getting those DMs from freshers or from second or third years saying, hi, I would love to come along to your church is the greatest joy ever. So do try and find a church whilst you're at university, get involved and be part of a community. But Christian, thank you so much again for your time.
You guys.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
What an amazing conversation that was with Christian. I just love that he had all of this intellectual head knowledge about faith and about God, but actually he had this powerful encounter with the Holy Spirit. It just felt like everything changed for him. Everything changed in his relationship with Jesus as he began to fall in love, not just with the concept of who God is, but in knowing him through relationships. Such an amazing story, and so encouraged by all of the stories we've heard here from students in Loughborough.
It's been so good to hear what God's doing. But I think it would be a really good idea to pray for more, to thank God for what he's doing. So let's do that now. Heavenly Father, we thank you. We thank you for all the amazing things that we've heard that are happening in this city. We thank you for the history, for the image that we have of what you're doing through sending people out through bells. And we praise you, God, that we get to be a part of that. We thank you that you've invited each and every one of these students into relationship with you. And what that means is it's a partnership. And we thank you for the partnerships that you have here in Loughborough. We pray that you will continue to use your local church here to equip, to raise up, to disciple, and to reach a new generation of students. We thank you for the openness that they're seeing here on the ground. And we praise you for what you're already doing. We ask, Heavenly Father, that you would continue to be at work, continue to do more. May we come back in years' time and hear even more amazing stories of what you're doing. Thank you, God. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Student Mission podcast. We will see you next time.